There are three ways to meet unpaid bills of a nation. The first is taxation. The second is repudiation. And the third is inflation. Hello, and welcome to With Wellner Anderson. If you haven't joined us before, on this channel we talk about business, economics, and financial terms in plain English. If you are not sure what money is, and I thought I knew what money was until I really found out, you probably need to look at the video below and then come back to this video. We're going to be talking about inflation. And today's episode is going to be about the history of inflation. We're going to start with the Great Depression. At the end of World War I, the United States emerged as the leading power in the world. Undisputed. The Spanish flu had just left. We had just finished a minor recession in 1921. And the roaring 20s were just beginning in the United States. It was a time where credit was available. People bought appliances for the first time on credit. 10% of the American population owned stock. People bought stock on margin, which means they borrowed money to get stock. It's said that John D. Rockefeller was getting his shoes shined, and when the shoe shine boy gave him a stock tip, he went up and sold everything he had. Well, what went on here, the market began to crash in 1929. Once the crash occurred, what government tried to do is they tried tariffs. That did not work. They raised the interest rates. That did not work. Those two things made a bad situation worse. On June 5th, 1933, Franklin Delano Roosevelt took America off the gold standard. Prices dropped. Banks began to fail. Roosevelt closed certain banks to protect the money and currency. The New Deal was a huge effort of spending money from the future that we did not have. Let's move on to the Great Recession, 2007, 2009. The seeds of it began in the Clinton administration when President Clinton eased the requirements for lending in housing. It was called the Community Reinvestment Act. He also revoked something called Glass-Steagall. Now, Glass-Steagall was an event that occurred in the Roosevelt administration, whereas what Franklin Delano Roosevelt did was separate investment banking from commercial banking. What Bill Clinton did was combine the two again, and that when the investment banks crashed, the commercial banks crashed also, like Lehman Brothers, AIG. Under President Bush II, he came out with the Troubled Access Relief Program, or TARP. He also came out with the ESA program, which was the Economic Stimulus Act. Under President Obama, they came out the American Investment Recovery Act. Those three acts together was about $2 trillion, again, of money that was printed out of nothing. Now, as we move on, when John Fitzgerald Kennedy became president, he recognized that we had to continue to print money when it wasn't backed by anything. What he did was John F. Kennedy reintroduced this. It's a silver certificate. Now, what this is this was supposed to be actually redeemable in silver if you went to the bank. He did that because he did not want people to hoard silver. So I believe he made those bills available so people wouldn't rush and hoard silver, which would have escalated the price of silver. This was all occurring because in America at that time, there was a Vietnam War and it was a Great Society. The next event that happened was Lyndon B. Johnson was approached by Charles de Gaulle and a couple other leaders from European countries wanting gold instead of dollars. Johnson quickly shut the window there. But the biggest event is called the Nixon Shock. If you're my age, I remember a show called Bonanza. And Bonanza was a Western. And there were three young men and their father was a very rich man. And the episode it was on was that Horace Cartwright, one of the sons, had discovered gold. Bonanza was the most popular show on TV. Nixon interrupted the show and said three things. He announced tariffs, he announced price freezes, but the main thing he announced was he took America officially off the gold standard. Now that sort of snuck by at night, people didn't see that. I want to talk about another issue or another event that happened in the 1600s in Holland. It was the tulip issue, whereas in the 1600s in Holland, I should say, the Netherlands was a major power, and they controlled what was called the Dutch East India Company and Dutch West India Company. If you combine them, the two of them, it was probably the largest company in the history of the world. Now, why I'm saying that is to make you understand what's happening in the 1600s. It said in the Netherlands in the 1600s, it was the first middle class society. Let's go back to the tulips. I was astounded when I found out about tulips. They're like works of art. They're each unique. So let me take you through a real scenario that happened in Holland in the 1600s. You would grow a mature tulip and bring the tulip into a bar. There'd be people in the bar that would look at that tulip and bid on the daughter bulbs of the tulip for the next year once that was grown. So in other words, what you were buying was a future bulb, and you were issued a contract today. With that contract was like currency. You can hand that contract to someone else. They might hold it, they might sell it, and at the end of the contract was actually when the bulbs, the whole of the contract at the very end would actually get the tulip bulbs. So what that was in reality was the first futures market. So you just learned about futures also in this. So let me bring this to conclusion. What's happened in the past and what's continuing to happen is we're spending money that has not been appropriated yet. We are stealing from the future, basically, in economics. I'd like to thank you. Please give me a thumbs up and please subscribe. Have a good day.